Hi, this is Lance Edwards, and I'm going to welcome you to this Apartment Wealth Nugget on how to syndicate your first 100 apartment doors, and also, frankly, what is syndication? And I'm going to start off by giving you a live example of one of my deals recently syndicated. This is a project where I partnered with one of my students, Diana Donner, lives in San Diego. She found this lead on the internet. It's in Oklahoma City, specifically Moore, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City. 56 units, acquired at 91% occupancy. And she brought the lead, she green-lighted the lead, she brought it to me. I paid her a $25,000 finder fee. And when you see the money we're making on it, you can understand why that's a very reasonable fee to be paying for a project like this. Because I syndicated it using my network. This is actually the grand opening. This is the ribbon cutting ceremony. This is the first 90 days. Chamber of Commerce is there. Some of my investors, some of my members of my team are there enjoying the fruits of syndicating this project. And so when we talk about syndicating it, first of all, that means bringing in private investors. These are some of my private investors. These are just individual folks, and you can see this is they actually came to the grand opening, so they got to see the plaques that we hang for our private investors. This is the contribution they've made to the project. This is the lenders being taken with their plaque. This is the Dickies, another one of our member couples, and these are the Bacas. Lovely folks, investors, loan me the money, enable me to buy these projects. That's part of the syndication team. Also part of the team is the management team. This is members of the management company. That's myself and my wife, Kim, members of the team. And of course, my wife, Kim, your spouse, your partner is always a key part of your support infrastructure. So this is we talk about syndicating it, doing these projects using other people's time, talent, and money. So in this case, my team, which came from my network, from my Wealth Mastermind network, well, there were private investors. This project required $1 million cash between the down payment funds. It was $630,000 a down payment, another $370,000 of rehab funds. That was raised from private investors. 80% of it came from a lender, a traditional lender from my network. Of course, we had a management company for my team. We had an insurance company to insure the property. My insurance company out of my network is the one all the other insurance companies go to get their quotes from. So I've eliminated the middleman with my insurance company. Have a cost segregation company. They're allowing me to do something called 100% bonus depreciation for a fee of $5,000. My deduction on this project, this $3.15 million project, my deduction, first year deduction, tax deduction, is $560,000 deduction on this project, thanks to the cost segregation company and the study they did for $5,000. Of course, we have an attorney. There's a real estate attorney, a securities attorney, CPA. This is what we talk about. This is the team. Syndication is a team effort, as is real estate, all of which I draw from my Wealth Mastermind network. So what is syndication more specifically? Well, I gave you an example of a project. So I think of syndication in two ways. Number one, it's the fastest path to wealth creation and passive income. I'm about to explain that to you. And secondly, it's the ultimate leverage of other people's money, other people's talent, and other people's time. Good leverage. This is really good leverage. I'm about to demonstrate it to you. So let's talk about the fastest path to wealth creation and passive income. It's the fastest path I know that's legal. So let me talk about this. Because this is the path to wealth and passive income, because when you buy apartments, every time you buy an apartment, you profit four ways. You're getting paid four ways, not just one. If you're, for example, if you're flipping houses or you're flipping apartments, that's great for cash flow, but recognize you only get paid once. Once you flip that property, you start from scratch the next day. You have to start all over again. Every time we buy an apartment, we're getting paid four ways for the life of the project. What are those four ways? Well, I get cash flow. I get cash flow for as long as I own the project. I get the tax savings. I just mentioned the bonus depreciation tax savings. I get that for the life of the project. Every month we're paying down the mortgage. More specifically, my renters are paying rent, which you just pay down the mortgage. That's paying down the balance on my mortgage. That's building up equity, which at some point down the road I can harvest by reselling or financing that property. And the fourth way I'm getting paid is as I raise the rents, as I raise the occupancy, as we do what I call potentialize these properties, get the potential out of them, we're doing something called forced appreciation. We're raising the value. That's also building equity. Four ways that we're profiting for every project. Now, when you add it all up, here's the minimum what you can expect to make on any apartment project over a 5-year period. The minimum is $20,000 per door net for each apartment you own for 5 years. That's 5 years of cash flow, 5 years of depreciation tax savings, 5 years of paying down the mortgage, 5 years of raising rents, 5 years of occupancy. And I say net, that's after paying all your management fees, after paying your management company, after paying all your expenses, after paying all your investors, after paying all your lenders. Net to you personally is minimum $20,000 per door net for holding a project for 5 years. So if you're netting a minimum $20,000 per door over 5 years, let's do some math. You got 5 doors, those worth $100,000 to you over 5 years. 50 doors is $1 million. I've just shown you the path forward to $1 million. Acquire 50 doors. That's the minimum, because that's assuming the minimum $20,000 per door. This project's going to be doing double that. It's going to be doing double that. So you got 100 doors, you're at $2 million. So these are big numbers we're playing with because we're getting paid 4 ways over the life of these projects. So do you really want to try to do this one house at a time? With all seriousness, if you're looking to accumulate $1 million, do you really want to try this one house at a time? The number of transactions you could do will be unfathomable. You could accumulate 50 doors in 2 or 3 moves. You could accumulate 100 doors in 2 or 3 or 4 moves because you're doing it in bigger and bigger chunks. And so the better strategy that I teach is start with small apartments and scale up. Just scale up to successfully bigger projects each and every time. That's the better strategy. So when I say small apartments, what's the definition of small apartments? We define them as 2 to 100 unit properties. And it's less about the number of doors, but the main distinction about small apartments are mom and pop owners. Mom and pop who typically self-manage their properties. They're not very good at it, and that means there's lots of low-hanging fruit. Mom and pop hate to raise the rents. They never charge other income. They never do all the things that a professional management company will do, professional operators will do to boost the value of these properties. So when we acquire these properties, there's lots of low-hanging fruit. That project I just showed you, we've already raised the rents $200. $200 on that one project. Now, most of my clients start in a 2 to 30 unit range and scale up, but it's a matter of getting started and scaling up. All right, so that's the first aspect of syndication. The second aspect of syndication I want to talk about is this point, it's the ultimate leverage of other people's money, talent, and time. So again, I've already made the point. There's my team. On this one project, there's my team. I leveraged all of their time, all of their unique talents, and I'm leveraging my investors' money, my lenders' money. So that's what I mean by ultimate leverage. All these people combined to help me achieve my vision, help me achieve my target. That's what we mean by the leverage. So for example, there's my management team on the left. There's just some of my private investors, the ones who flew to Oklahoma for part of the grand opening. Combined, this is what I call my potentializer team, because we are potentializing these properties. We're potentializing the value of these properties. At the same time, we're transforming these small apartment communities for the better. We've already received in the first 90 days great comments how we've improved the property. The police love us because the police calls have gone down. We've got compliments from the city council. We got compliments from the neighbors. Not only are we doing well for ourselves, we're also improving the communities through the combined efforts of my potentializer team. We're potentializing these properties. And keep in mind, once you have your network in place and you're going to be able to plug into my network, it's the same effort to own 5 doors as it is 50 doors. And the same effort to own 50 doors as 500 doors. It's the same process, just repeated over and over and over. It's the path to scale up. It's the ultimate leverage. So it's the highest return of your fixed money, talent, and time. Because let's face it, each of us only has so much time, so much money, and so much talent. We don't have time to learn everything. We're going to plug into all the correct who's, the ones I've already vetted out through my Wealth Mastermind network. And that's where the leverage comes from, is accessing, again, other people's time, talent, and money. And then once you have the process down, once you have the network in place, which I'm providing you, then you start scaling up in bigger and bigger chunks. You may start up with 5 doors. The next project may be 10. The next one may be 20. The next one may be 40. If you just double the number of doors, just do the math. You'll be at 100 doors within 4 moves, 3 or 4 moves. That's the power of small apartments. So that's syndication. Now, you may be saying, well, syndication sounds a lot like raising private money. It is raising private money. So let's make a distinction right here. What's the difference between raising private money versus, quote, syndication? So let's do a side-by-side comparison. Raising private money, typically when you're going out to raise money from friends, family, and existing relationships, people you already know, and you're probably going to go to one investor, maybe 2. Most likely, you just need one investor for your first deal. The agreement you have with your investor, you're going to secure it with a promissory note and some type of security instrument, either a mortgage or a lien, something just simple paperwork you can get at Staples. All right, that's the paperwork you involved. It says loose SEC rules. There's basically no SEC rules, meaning Security and Exchange Commission, because it's when you're raising money with people you know, there basically are no rules. It's just between the two of you. It's very simple and quick transaction, and the question of your experience doesn't come up. When you're raising private money from people you know, they're loaning you the money based upon their relationship with you, their confidence in you, their trust in you. It's not about your experience. It's about you. So that's what raising private money is about. Now let's contrast that with syndication. With syndication, we're going to go raise bigger sums of money. So now we're going to throw a bigger net. Besides friends, family, and existing relationships, we're going to expand that to strangers. We're going to be asking strangers who don't know us to loan us money for our projects. We're going to build up a bigger pool of investors. It may be 10, 20, 100 investors or more, depending upon the size of these projects. Now, the documentation that's used here is very formal documentation, has to be prepared by an attorney, particularly a securities attorney. And one of the key documents is something called a PPM. That's called a private placement memorandum, which it defines all the strategy, all the objectives, all the risk. It has to be given to the investor. You have to get a receipt that they prepared it. Plus, there are going to be some other agreements that have to be prepared by your attorney. And you're going to spend between minimum, low side, $10,000, more likely $25,000 for all these formal documents that are strictly required by the Security and Exchange Commission. Because when you get into syndication and you're raising money from people who don't know you, from strangers, there are strict SEC rules, both state and federal, that you have to follow and stay in compliance. And your attorney stays involved in the process, making sure you adhere to all that compliance. Because if you fail to comply, there are strict penalties, very strict penalties that you don't want to get crosswise with the SEC. So it's a more involved sign-up and compliance process. Certainly in comparison to raising private money, you come to a handshake, sign a promissory note, you're in business. On the syndication side, it's more formal, more involved compliance. And on the syndication side, because you're dealing with strangers, experience is everything. They don't know us. They don't know anything about us, so they're looking at our experience. You're not going to be raising a big pool of money if you don't have any experience on the right-hand side of this balance sheet that I'm explaining to you right here. Okay, so raising private money is the left, syndication is on the right. So now the question, you may be saying to yourself, now that I've shown you the contrast, you might think, well, Lance, I don't have apartment experience yet, and I don't have a spare $25,000 to hand to an attorney. How do I get started syndicating? What do I do? Well, here's what you do, because here's how I did it. I was in that same boat when I first got started years ago. So here's what you do. You start with small apartments and one investor. I started with one investor. I had one investor, and within 3 years, it allowed me to leave a 20-year job. That one investor, all right? So you start with small apartments, you have one investor. And then you start building up your experience resume. You just start acquiring and building up your experience resume. And then as you need more investors, you can get referrals from your first investor for successive projects. As long as you have relationships, you don't need to syndicate anything. You can just keep getting referrals to other people from those relationships and keep scaling up your business that way. That's what I did. I went from one investor, then I had two. That led me for another few years. When you move to a PPM is once you have a project that exceeds your known network of referrals, means you need more money than all your contacts can provide for you. You just can't raise that amount of money from all the contacts within your network. Then you're going to move to syndication. Then you're going to have a PPM engaged. Then you have a PPM written for you. You have a securities attorney. So how do you pay the legal fees? But by that point, you accumulate the legal fees from your profits from all the transactions you've been doing with your one and two investors. Or you can always go back to your first investors and they'll loan you the money to grow your business. It's basically a business loan to expand your business. Now you've got resources, so the fees don't look so daunting as you're scaling up. But what you have to do when you go to the syndication and those PPMs is you absolutely hire a securities attorney to guide you and prepare your paperwork. This is not something you do on your own. You absolutely have to do it with a securities attorney. And then, of course, you keep scaling up and successfully bigger and bigger steps. And the more experience, the more successes you have, it feeds on itself. That's how you get started. That's the process. But you start with small apartments, one investor, and you scale up. Now, keep in mind, I teach 50 ways to fund small apartments when you're getting started without syndication. I mean, this is without using banks, without using cash, without using credit. This is how I did it. I teach those 50 ways. It's all these techniques that you can do. And one of the questions you might have, well, where do I find these private lenders for small apartments? Where do I find them? Well, they're ordinary people. I gave you some pictures of who my folks are. They're just ordinary people, like the ones that are in my buyer lender network already. And I want you to realize there's more money in your Rolodex than you realize right now. The contacts on your phone, all the money you need to get started is right there. It's also, again, my buyer lender network, because you only need one investor to get started. You're not starting out by syndicating with 100 investors. You're starting off with one. Just focus on the one. Or if you have a project, you can always bring it to me and I'll buy it, or you can flip it to someone in my network. Because remember, you're just one deal away. Everyone is just one deal away. For me, it was that first fourplex that I bought. And from there, Katie barred the door because I was on my way. The confidence is built and you're on your way. And you scale up and you scale up and you scale up. You're just one deal away. So if you'd like to investigate working with me, my team, and my network in getting started in small apartments, click the link below and I'll take you to a page where it explains how that works and how you get started working with me. I look forward to working with you and meeting you in the future.